Welcome, beautiful Sigma ladies. Not every shadow hides a monster. Some shadows hide geniuses who refuse to be understood. In psychology, there's a startling fact. Researchers estimate that about 1% of the global population qualifies as true psychopaths. Cold, calculating, and entirely without remorse. But here's where things get complicated. Another group of women also live in shadows, often mistaken for predators when in reality they're protectors of their own freedom. Sigma females. Now, confusing a Sigma female with a psychopath is like mistaking a chess grandmaster for a pickpocket. Both are strategic. Both move differently than the crowd, but only one leaves you missing your wallet. The other leaves you questioning your entire worldview. Today we're diving into 20 hidden differences between Sigma females and psychopaths. Contrasts so sharp they'll cut through every lazy stereotype you've ever heard. Buckle up, because once you see the truth, you'll never confuse solitude with emptiness, or power with manipulation ever again. Number 1. Legacy versus aftermath. Legacy versus aftermath is where the difference between Sigma females and psychopaths becomes almost terrifyingly clear. A Sigma female moves through life with a sense of quiet purpose. She's not obsessed with being seen, praised, or immortalized. Yet her choices, her words, and the way she navigates her own independence leave a trail behind her. People remember her for the way she challenged systems, for the way she carried herself with dignity when others collapsed under pressure, and for the rare authenticity she brought into spaces where fakery was the norm. Her legacy isn't a polished statue or a grand speech. It's the subtle but undeniable influence she leaves on minds and lives. Years later, someone might not recall her face, but they'll remember how she made them rethink what freedom, respect, and strength really mean. On the other side, a psychopath leaves behind something very different, an aftermath. Where they go, trust corrodes, friendships fracture, and chaos lingers. Their impact isn't creative, it's corrosive. You'll see people second-guessing themselves, doubting their instincts, or nursing wounds they can't quite explain. There's no growth in what a psychopath leaves behind, only scars. They thrive in manipulation while they're present, but when they're gone, the only thing left is a hollow ache that forces others to rebuild from the wreckage. The contrast is brutal. A Sigma female doesn't seek to carve her name into other people's lives, but she inevitably shapes them simply because her independence is contagious. It plants seeds of courage in others, sometimes without her even knowing. A psychopath, in contrast, takes without giving, burns without warming, and leaves people emptier than before. The essence of legacy is endurance. It's influence that outlives presence. The essence of aftermath is residue. It's damage that lingers because something toxic passed through. One builds even in silence, the other destroys even in laughter. And that's why confusing a Sigma female with a psychopath is not just lazy, it's dangerous. One leaves a blueprint that makes others stronger. The other leaves a mess that makes others weaker. That difference is not just hidden, it's everything. Number 2. Recognition of darkness versus celebration of darkness. Recognition of darkness versus celebration of darkness is one of the most subtle but telling differences between Sigma females and psychopaths. A Sigma female knows she has shadows, anger, fear, selfish urges, or impulses she doesn't always like, but she treats them like information, not identity. She acknowledges that these darker sides exist, studies them quietly, and uses that understanding to make decisions with clarity and control. She never pretends to be flawless, but she also never allows her darker impulses to dictate her life. Her darkness is recognized, contained, and occasionally harnessed, but always under her terms. Psychopaths, on the other hand, don't just live with darkness, they flaunt it. They glorify cruelty, manipulation, and moral flexibility as badges of superiority, proof that they are untouchable, untamed, and beyond the rules everyone else follows. Darkness is not a part of them that is managed or examined. It is their main stage. They seek to impress, intimidate, and dominate, often using their so-called dark side as a way to make others submit, fear, or worship them. Where a Sigma female sees her shadows as tools for self-mastery, a psychopath sees them as weapons for control. This difference is crucial because it changes everything about how they interact with the world. A Sigma female's acknowledgement of her darkness builds resilience and insight. It makes her measured, unpredictable in subtle ways, and always in command of herself. A psychopath's celebration of darkness spreads instability, fear, and destruction. It makes them visible, volatile, and dangerous to anyone who steps into their orbit. In essence, the Sigma female is quietly sovereign over her inner storm, while the psychopath dances in it and invites everyone else to get swept away. One is strength refined, the other strength weaponized. Number 3, empathy as ammunition versus empathy as compass. Empathy as ammunition versus empathy as a compass is one of the clearest ways to separate Sigma females from psychopaths. A Sigma female actually feels what others feel. She senses pain, joy, frustration, and confusion, not superficially, not as a performance, but deeply and instinctively. Yet she wields this empathy with surgical precision. She doesn't hand it out indiscriminately or let it make her vulnerable to manipulation. She observes, she understands, and she acts in ways that protect herself while still maintaining integrity. Empathy for her is a tool, a lens through which she navigates relationships and situations, ensuring she responds with insight rather than instinctive reaction. Psychopaths, in stark contrast, don't truly feel empathy. What they display is imitation, a clever mask designed to manipulate, to soothe, to extract what they want. Their compassion is never genuine, it's calculated. Every gesture of care or understanding is measured against potential gain, whether it's control, admiration, or leverage. To them, empathy is a weapon, an instrument to disarm or mislead. Unlike the Sigma female, their empathy isn't a guide. It's a performance, hollow yet convincing, designed to exploit the natural instincts of those who do feel. The distinction is profound because it changes everything about their interactions. The Sigma female's empathy builds trust, even when she keeps her distance. It connects, enlightens, and occasionally heals. The psychopath's empathy fractures trust, manipulates perceptions, and leaves others questioning what is real. One is conscious, intentional, and empowering. The other is opportunistic, deceptive, and corrosive. In essence, the Sigma female's empathy is a compass. It points to truth, clarity, and informed action. The psychopath's empathy is ammunition, designed to wound, control, and profit. It's not just about feeling, it's about how that feeling shapes the world around them. And that is the difference between genuine influence and destructive illusion. Number 4, power from self-mastery versus power from domination. Power from self-mastery versus power from domination is one of the most defining contrasts between Sigma females and psychopaths. A Sigma female doesn't seek to control others because she has already learned to control herself. She understands her thoughts, her impulses, and her reactions, and she uses that awareness to navigate the world with precision and confidence. Her influence comes naturally. People are drawn to her because she carries a calm, unshakable authority that doesn't need to assert itself through fear or manipulation. She gains power by refining her skills, sharpening her mind, and aligning her actions with her values. Every step she takes is intentional, every decision measured, and every boundary respected, not just by herself, but by those around her. Psychopaths, in contrast, derive their sense of power externally. They dominate, intimidate, and manipulate because they cannot find it within themselves. Their authority is built on breaking others, exposing vulnerabilities, creating dependence, or exploiting trust. They measure success by control rather than competence, by fear rather than respect. Their power is loud, visible, and often chaotic because it requires constant reinforcement through external submission. Without others to manipulate or crush, their influence collapses, revealing the emptiness at the core of their strength. The difference is stark. A Sigma female's mastery of self makes her untouchable and enduring. Her influence persists even when she's absent. A psychopath's domination is fragile and fleeting, existing only as long as their control over others remains unchallenged. One builds resilience and inspires growth. The other breeds insecurity and leaves destruction in their wake. In essence, Sigma females create power from within. They are architects of their own lives. Psychopaths extract power from without. They are scavengers of others' weaknesses. That distinction is not subtle. It's the line between enduring influence and temporary hollow authority. Number 5. Allies by choice versus puppets by force. Allies by choice versus puppets by force is a distinction that exposes the very core of how Sigma females and psychopaths operate in relationships and networks. A Sigma female doesn't need followers to validate her power. People are drawn to her because she respects their autonomy, treats them as equals, and never tries to dominate or manipulate them into loyalty. Her alliances are formed through mutual respect, shared values, and unspoken recognition of each other's strength. She inspires commitment without demanding it, and the loyalty she earns is genuine, lasting, and resilient because it's freely given. Psychopaths, on the other hand, view people as tools or instruments to be bent to their will. Their so-called allies are often nothing more than puppets, controlled through fear, lies, or manipulation. Relationships are transactional, loyalty is conditional, and trust is an illusion manufactured to serve their goals. They extract obedience rather than earn respect, and once their leverage disappears, so does the allegiance of those around them. The psychopath's network is fragile, constantly at risk of collapse because it's built on coercion rather than choice. The difference is subtle but seismic. A Sigma female's influence grows stronger with every interaction because it's rooted in respect and freedom. Psychopaths may seem powerful in the moment, but their control is brittle and their social structures are prone to unraveling the second someone refuses to play their game. One builds networks that endure, cultivates strength, and multiply potential. The other creates dependencies that crumble, leaving emptiness and distrust behind. In essence, Sigma females attract allies because they empower others. Psychopaths manufacture puppets because they exploit others. That contrast isn't just behavioral, it's moral, strategic, and psychological, marking the divide between sustainable influence and hollow control. Number 6. Risk as growth versus risk as chaos. Risk as growth versus risk as chaos is a distinction that reveals how Sigma females and psychopaths perceive the world and their place in it. A Sigma female approaches risk with intention. She steps into uncertainty not for thrill or spectacle, but to expand her capabilities, test her limits, and evolve. Every calculated risk is a stepping stone toward mastery. She weighs potential outcomes, learns from the experience, and emerges stronger, smarter, and more self-aware. Risk for her is a tool for transformation, a way to refine her independence and resilience, and it always serves a purpose beyond mere adrenaline. Psychopaths, in stark contrast, engage in risk for the rush of disorder. Chaos excites them. They gamble, provoke, or break rules not to grow, but because the instability feeds their sense of superiority and thrill. Their risks are rarely measured. They are impulsive, destructive, and often at the expense of others. Where a Sigma female's risk builds, a psychopath's risk destroys, leaving confusion, fear, and fallout in its wake. Theirs is a reckless energy that seduces attention but leaves scars on themselves and everyone around them. This difference defines outcomes. A Sigma female emerges from risk with clarity, insight, and often unexpected advantage. She transforms uncertainty into a personal asset. A psychopath, however, thrives on unpredictability only insofar as it fuels drama and control. Risk for them is performative and dangerous, rarely constructive, and almost never sustainable. In essence, Sigma females take risks to evolve, to grow, and to forge strength from challenge. Psychopaths take risks to ignite chaos, to dominate, and to thrill themselves at the expense of others. One builds resilience and vision. The other creates instability and fear. That distinction is not just a matter of temperament. It's a fundamental divergence in purpose, intent, and the energy they bring into the world. Number 7. Respect for boundaries versus predatory invasion. Respect for boundaries versus predatory invasion is one of the sharpest ways to separate Sigma females from psychopaths. A Sigma female knows the value of limits, both her own and those of others. She sets clear boundaries and protects them fiercely, not as a power play, but as a declaration of self-respect and autonomy. Her interactions are guided by these invisible lines, and she expects them to be honored. When others test them, She responds with quiet, unyielding firmness. Boundaries for her are not restrictions, they are frameworks that allow her freedom, clarity, and integrity to thrive. Psychopaths, in contrast, see boundaries as weaknesses to exploit. They test, push, and break them without hesitation, viewing resistance as an obstacle to overcome rather than a signal to respect. To a psychopath, rules and limits exist only as challenges to manipulate, bend, or destroy. They do not value consent, autonomy, or mutual respect. Their aim is to penetrate, dominate, and extract whatever advantage they can. The world is a playground for them, and boundaries are merely gates to be forced open. The contrast is critical because it shapes how these two types move through the world and relate to others. A Sigma female's respect for boundaries builds trust, ensures mutual respect, and fosters relationships that are authentic and sustainable. Psychopaths leave chaos, resentment, and emotional scars wherever they interact, because their disregard for limits destabilizes every connection they touch. In essence, Sigma females use boundaries as a shield and a compass, guiding themselves and signaling to others what is acceptable. Psychopaths use boundaries as targets, viewing them as puzzles to dismantle or obstacles to crush. One protects autonomy and strengthens connection. The other erodes autonomy and creates dependency or fear. That distinction isn't minor, it's the line between integrity and predation, self-respect and exploitation. Number 8. Inner code versus no code at all. Inner code versus no code at all exposes the fundamental moral and psychological difference between Sigma females and psychopaths. A Sigma female lives by an internal compass that she has carefully developed over time. She may bend or break society's arbitrary rules when they conflict with her principles, but she never compromises the standards she has set for herself. Every choice is weighed against her own values, and her integrity remains intact even when the world around her is chaotic or corrupt. Her inner code isn't rigid for show, it's a framework that guides decisions, interactions, and her approach to challenges. It gives her freedom, clarity, and a quiet authority that others sense even if they can't articulate it. Psychopaths, in contrast, operate without an internal moral structure. They are like blank slates driven solely by desire, impulse, or opportunism. Social rules, ethics, and norms exist only as tools to manipulate or obstacles to bypass. Without an internal code, every action is permissible if it serves their immediate goals, and accountability is non-existent. Their decisions are reactive, predatory, and entirely self-serving, leaving a trail of damage behind because nothing restrains them from exploiting, deceiving, or harming others. This distinction shapes everything about how they move through the world. A Sigma female's behavior may seem unpredictable to outsiders, but it is always consistent with her values. Her decisions, even when unconventional, maintain a moral consistency that earns respect and fosters trust. A psychopath's actions, by contrast, are unpredictable in a destructive way. Consistency exists only in their self-interest, never in ethical or relational terms. In essence, the Sigma female's inner code is a compass, providing direction, discipline, and integrity. The psychopath's lack of code is a void, a space where impulse and appetite reign unchecked. One builds enduring trust and respect, the other leaves uncertainty, fear, and moral confusion in their wake. The difference isn't subtle. It is the very foundation of character versus chaos. Number 9. Perception without exploitation versus perception for predation. Perception without exploitation versus perception for predation highlights one of the most striking contrasts between Sigma females and psychopaths. Both can read people and situations with uncanny accuracy, noticing subtleties that escape most others. But how they use that perception defines who they are. A Sigma female observes to understand. She notices patterns, moods, vulnerabilities, and intentions, not to manipulate them, but to navigate the environment wisely and protect her own autonomy. Her awareness is a tool for insight, strategy, and self-preservation, not a weapon against others. She sees clearly, but her vision does not harm. It informs, guides, and sometimes quietly influences outcomes without coercion. Psychopaths, in stark contrast, perceive for predation. Their acute awareness of others' behaviors, fears, and weaknesses exists solely as a mechanism for control and exploitation. They study, probe, and calculate how to manipulate people, predict reactions, and engineer situations that serve their interests. Their perception is active, invasive, and always instrumental. Every detail is ammunition, every observation a potential lever to bend others to their will. Where the Sigma female's perception empowers her and those she trusts, the psychopath's perception weaponizes everyone in sight. The difference is profound because it changes not only outcomes, but energy. A Sigma female can enter a room and subtly influence dynamics without anyone realizing she is even present, and yet no one is harmed in the process. A psychopath's presence, by contrast, often leaves tension, suspicion, or even fear, because everyone around them is unknowingly part of a calculated experiment. In essence, the Sigma female's perception is a lens for understanding, strategy, and self-mastery. The psychopath's perception is a scalpel for manipulation, control, and domination. One sharpens insight, the other sharpens leverage. That distinction isn't merely behavioral, it's a fundamental divergence between awareness used responsibly and awareness used destructively. Number 10. Selective relationships versus disposable relationships. Selective relationships versus disposable relationships is one of the clearest ways to see the difference between Sigma females and psychopaths. A Sigma female approaches connections with intention. She doesn't chase approval, popularity, or the illusion of a network. Instead, she invests her energy in relationships that matter, people who align with her values, challenge her growth, or respect her autonomy. Every bond she forms is deliberate, built on mutual respect, trust, and authenticity. She knows the value of her time and emotional energy, and she doesn't waste either on those who are superficial, toxic, or self-serving. Her relationships are deep, meaningful, and enduring because they are chosen, not demanded. Psychopaths, by contrast, treat relationships purely as instruments. People are tools to be used, leveraged, or discarded once they've served their purpose. Loyalty is irrelevant, care is performative, and emotional investment is absent. Connections exist only as temporary utilities to achieve goals, power, control, manipulation, or personal gain. Once the utility expires, the relationship is tossed aside without hesitation or remorse. To a psychopath, human bonds are disposable, and no real connection survives beyond what benefits them. This contrast defines their impact on the world. The Sigma female builds a network of genuine allies, friends, and collaborators who endure challenges and grow together. Psychopaths leave a trail of broken trust, fractured alliances, and emptiness because their interactions are never about connection, only extraction. In essence, Sigma females value people, respect their individuality, and cultivate relationships with care. Psychopaths value outcomes, ignore autonomy, and treat relationships as fleeting commodities. One builds connection and resilience, the other leaves erosion and instability. That distinction is not subtle. It's a defining element of how they move through life and how they are remembered. Number 11. Quiet power versus loud manipulation. Quiet power versus loud manipulation is one of the most revealing contrasts between Sigma females and psychopaths. A Sigma female doesn't need to broadcast her strength or demand attention. Her presence alone shifts the energy in a room. People sense her authority without her having to speak a word. Her silence isn't emptiness. It's intentional, observant, and loaded with influence. Decisions, conversations, and conflicts bend subtly around her awareness because she exudes control through restraint rather than force. Her quiet power is durable, respected, and often underestimated, but it changes outcomes nonetheless. Psychopaths, however, use silence in a completely different way. Their quiet isn't reflective or commanding, it's predatory. A pause can be a threat, a countdown, or a calculated tool to unnerve others. They weaponize stillness to create tension, manipulate perception, or provoke reactions. Where the Sigma female's silence informs and empowers, the psychopath's silence destabilizes and coerces. The same empty space can feel comforting in the hands of a Sigma, but threatening in the hands of a psychopath. The difference lies in intent. Quiet power inspires subtle influence and respect. Loud manipulation relies on fear, uncertainty, and psychological leverage. One builds trust and authority without effort. The other demands attention at the expense of integrity and safety. In essence, the Sigma female's silence is gravity. It attracts, shifts, and stabilizes. The psychopath's silence is a trap. It entangles, controls, and destabilizes. The contrast is stark. One transforms presence into influence, the other transforms presence into a weapon. Number 12. Truth as liberation versus truth as weapon. Truth as liberation versus truth as weapon is a defining distinction between Sigma females and psychopaths. A Sigma female doesn't shy away from truth, even when it's uncomfortable or inconvenient. She faces facts, admits realities, and speaks with honesty, not to harm, but to free herself and those around her from illusions. Her truth is measured, precise, and used to clarify, to illuminate blind spots, and to cut through confusion. Even when it burns, it strengthens her, because integrity and clarity are far more valuable than comfort or deception. Truth for her is a tool for empowerment, both personal and relational. Psychopaths, by contrast, manipulate truth like a blade hidden in a velvet glove. They present fragments, half-truths, or selective realities to deceive, control, and trap others. Every disclosure is calculated to provoke doubt, manipulate perception, or maintain dominance. Their truth is never about liberation. It is a weapon designed to chain others in lies, erode confidence, and reinforce their control. While the Sigma female's honesty builds clarity and trust, the psychopath's truth fractures reality and manipulates it to their advantage. The difference goes deeper than mere ethics. It defines their impact on the people around them. A Sigma female's embrace of truth fosters growth, insight, and genuine respect. People may struggle with the honesty, but they ultimately recognize the value and integrity behind it. A psychopath's partial truths create confusion, dependency, and vulnerability, leaving others trapped in a distorted version of reality that serves only the manipulator. In essence, Sigma females wield truth as liberation, cutting through illusions, clarifying intentions, and empowering action. Psychopaths wield truth as a weapon, selective, distorted, and aimed at control. One frees, the other entangles. One builds trust and clarity, the other sows doubt and dependency. The distinction is not subtle. It is the difference between influence rooted in integrity and control rooted in deception. Understanding the difference between Sigma females and psychopaths is not just an intellectual exercise. It's a lesson in perception, influence, and self-mastery. Sigma females operate from a place of depth, integrity, and intentionality. They navigate life guided by internal codes, genuine empathy, and calculated autonomy. Their power is quiet but unshakable, their influence built on respect, not fear, and their presence leaves a legacy of clarity, growth, and inspiration. Every choice, every relationship, every risk is measured, deliberate, and rooted in self-mastery. Psychopaths, in contrast, operate from emptiness. Their charm is superficial, their influence coercive, and their presence often destructive. They exploit, manipulate, and dominate because they lack inner grounding, empathy, and moral compass. Where the Sigma female builds trust, understanding, and resilience, the psychopath leaves chaos, distrust, and dependency. Where she evolves through reflection and deliberate action, they survive through control and exploitation. Recognizing these differences is crucial. Not to fear Sigma females or demonize psychopaths, but to see clearly who operates with conscious power and who operates through destructive hunger. Sigma females are forces of subtle transformation. Psychopaths are forces of disruption without purpose. One inspires, empowers, and endures. The other destabilizes, manipulates, and collapses when unchecked. If you want to navigate life with sharper insight, protect your energy, and understand the hidden dynamics of influence and character, these distinctions are everything. The Sigma female teaches us that true strength is internal, measured, and quietly profound. The psychopath reminds us of the cost of influence untethered from conscience. In the end, it's the difference between leaving a lasting mark on the world or leaving only aftermath. If you found this breakdown of Sigma females versus psychopaths as eye-opening as it is, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss insights like this. Hit the like button if it gave you a fresh perspective. Comment below with your thoughts or experiences, and share this video with anyone who needs to understand these hidden dynamics. Your support helps us bring more brutally honest, exceptional content straight to you, so don't hold back.